Hello everyone, this is Sumit Bose and I am from the Bodhi Academy. Today we are going to discuss on the chapter making of regional cultures. So without any further delay, let's start. One of the commonest ways of describing people is in terms of language they speak, right? When we refer to a person as a Tamil or an Oriya, this actually means that he speaks Tamil or Oriya and lives in Tamil Nadu or Odisha. We also tend to associate each region with distinctive kinds of food, clothes, poetry, dance, music, and painting. Sometimes we take these identities for granted and assume that they have existed from time immemorial. However, the frontier spreading regions have evolved over time. Also, what we understand as regional cultures today are often the product of complex process intermixing of local traditions with ideas from other parts of the subcontinent. As we will see, some traditions appear specific to some regions, others seem to be similar across regions, and yet others derive from other practices in a particular area but take a new form in other regions. Right? The Cheras and the development of Malayalam. Okay, so this chapter we will know how different cultures came. Okay, let us begin by looking at an examples of the connection between language and region. The Chera kingdom of Madhyapuram was established in 9th century in the southwestern part of the peninsula, part of present-day Kerala. It is likely that Malayalam was spoken in this area. The rulers introduced the Malayalam language and script in their inscriptions. In fact, this is one of the earliest examples of the use of regional language in the official records in the subcontinent. At the same time, the Cheras also drew upon Sanskritic traditions. The temple theatre of Kerala, which is traced to this period, borrowed stories from the Sanskrit epics. The first literary works in Malayalam, dated to about 12th century, are directly indebted to Sanskrit. Interestingly enough, a 14th century text, the Lilatikam, dealing with grammar and poetics, was composed in Mahi Pravalam, literally diamonds and corals, referring to the two languages, Sanskrit and regional language. Okay, rulers of religious tradition, the Jagannatha cult. In other regions, regional cultures grew around religious traditions. The best example of the process is the Jagannatha. Okay, it's found in Orissa, Puri, at Puri, Orissa. To date, the local tribal people make wooden image of the deity, which suggests that the deity was originally a local god who was later identified with Vishnu. In the 12th century, one of the most important rulers of Ganga dynasty, Anantavarman, decided to erect a temple of Purushottama Jagannatha at Puri. Subsequently, in 1230, King Angalabhima III decided his kingdom to the deity who proclaimed himself as a deputy of the god. So this is the Jagannatha temple of Puri. As the temple gained in importance as a center of pilgrimage, its authority in social and political matters also increased. All those who conquered Orissa, such as the Mughals, the Marathas, the English East India Company, attempted to gain control over the temple. They felt that this would make their rule acceptable to the local people. The Rajputs' traditions of heroism. In the 19th century, the region that constitute most of the present-day Rajasthan was called Rajputana by the British. While this may suggest that this was an area that was inhabited only or mainly by Rajputs, this is the only partly true. There were several groups who identify themselves as Rajput in many areas of northern and central India. And of course, there are several peoples other than Rajputs who live in Rajasthan. However, the Rajputs are often recognized as contributing to distinctive culture of Rajasthan. The cultural traditions were closely linked with the ideals and aspirations of rulers. From about the 8th century, most of the present-day state Rajasthan was ruled by the various Rajput families. Prithviraj was such a ruler. These rulers cherished the ideal of the hero who fought valiantly, often choosing death on the battlefield rather than face defeat. Stories about Rajput heroes were recorded in poems and songs, which were recited specially by trained minstrels. These preserved the memories of heroes and were expected to inspire others to follow their example. Ordinary people were also attracted by these stories, which often depicted dramatic situations and range of strong emotions: loyalty, friendship, love, valor, anger, etc. Did women find a place within these stories? Sometimes they figure as the cause for conflicts, and men fought with one another in either to win or protect women. Women are also depicted as following their heroic husband in both life and death. There are stories about the practice of sati, the immolation of widows, and funeral prayer of their husbands. So those who followed the heroic ideal often had to pay for their own lives. Beyond regional frontiers, the story of Kathak, the famous dance, right? If heroic traditions can be found in different regions in different forms, the same true of dance. Let us look at the history of the dance form Kathak. Now associated with several parts of North India, the term Kathak is derived from Katha, a word used in Sanskrit and other languages for story. The Kathaks were originally a caste of storytellers in temples of North India who embellished their performances with gestures and songs. Kathak began evolving into a distinct mode of dance in the 15th and 16th centuries with the spread of Bhakti movement. So Kathak gained popularity in the 15th and 16th century when the Bhakti movement spread. The legends of Radha Krishna were enacted in folk prayers called Rasa Leela, which combined folk dance with the basic gestures of the Kathak storytellers. Under the Mughal emperors and their nobles, Kathak was performed in the court, where it acquired its present features and developed into a form of dance which a distinctive style. Subsequently, it developed in two traditions in Garhanas, one in the courts of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and in other in Lucknow. Nawab of Oudh, it grew into a major art form. By the third quarter of the 19th century, it was firmly entrenched as a dance form only in these two regions, but the adjoining areas of present-day Punjab, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh emphasis was laid on intricate and rapid footwork, elaborate customs, as well as the enactment of stories. Kathak, like several other cultural practices, was viewed with disfavor by most British administration in the 19th and 20th centuries. However, it survived and continued to be performed by courtesans and was recognized as one of six classical forms of dance in the country of independence. It's Kathak form of dance. Painting for patrons, the tradition of the miniatures. Another tradition that developed in different ways was the miniature painting. Miniatures are small size paintings generally done in watercolor on cloth or paper. The earliest miniatures were on palm leaves or wood. Some of those beautiful of these found in the western India were used for illustrate Jaina texts. The Mughal emperors Akbar, Jahangir and Shah Jahan patronized highly skilled painters who primarily illustrated manuscripts containing historical accounts and policy. These were generally painted in brilliant colors and portrayed court scenes, scenes of battle, of hunting, and other aspects of social life. They were often exchanged as gifts and were viewed only by an exclusive view of the emperor and his close associate. With the decline of the Mughal Empire, many painters moved out of the courts of the emerging regional states. As a result, Mughal artistic taste influenced the regional courts of the Deccan and the Rajput courts of Rajasthan. At the same time, they retained and developed their distinctive characteristics. Portrayals be painted following the Mughal example. Besides, themes from mythology and poetry were devised in centers as Mewar, Jodhpur, Bundi, Kota, and Kishagar. Another region that attracted miniature paintings was the Himalayan foothills around modern day state of Himachal Pradesh. These are the miniature paintings. By the late 17th century, this region had developed a bold and intense style of miniature painting called Bashohli. The most popular text to be painted here was Bashu Datta's Rasmajari. Nadir Shah's invasion and the conquest of Delhi in 1739 resulted the migration of Mughal artists to the hills and escape uncertainties of the plains. Here, they found ready patrons, which led to the founding of the Kangra school of painting. By the mid 18th century, the Kangra artists developed a style which breathed a new spirit into miniature painting. The source of inspiration was the Vishanvita tradition. Soft colors including cool blue and greens and lyrical treatment of themes distinguished Kangra painting. Remember that ordinary women and men painted as well on pots, walls, floors, clothes, works on that have occasionally survived, unlike the miniatures that were carefully preserved in the palaces for centuries. Bengal, a growth of regional language. As we saw the outset, we often tend to identify regions in terms of the language spoken by the people. So we assume the people in Bengal always spoke Bengali. However, what is interesting is that while Bengali is now recognized as a language derived from Sanskrit, early Sanskrit texts suggest that the people of Bengal did not speak Sanskritic languages. So how did the language emerge? That is the biggest question. From the 4th, 3rd centuries BCE, commercial ties began to develop within Bengal and Magadha, which may have led to growing influence of Sanskrit. During the 4th century, the Gupta rulers established political control over North Bengal and began to settle Brahmanas in that area. Thus, the linguistic and cultural influence from the Mid-Ganga valley became stronger. In the 7th century of Chinese travelers Yuan Zhang observed the languages related to Sanskrit were in use in all over Bengal. From the 8th century, Bengal became the center of regional kingdom under the Palas. Between the 14th and 16th centuries, Bengal was ruled by the sultans who were independent rulers of Delhi. In 1586, when Akbar conquered Bengal, it formed the nucleus of Bengal Sabha. While Persian was the language of administration, Bengali developed as a regional language. In fact, by 15th century, the Bengali group of dialects came to be united by a common literary language based on the spoken language of western part of region, now known as West Bengal. It passed through several stages of evolution. Also, a wide range of non-Sanskrit words derived from variety of sources, including tribal language, Persian, European language, have become a part of modern Bengali. Early Bengali literature may be divided into two categories: one indebted to Sanskrit and the other independent on it. The first includes the translation of Sanskrit epics, the Mangal Kavyas, and the Bhakti literature such as the biographies of Chaitanya Deva, the leader of Vaishnava Bhakti movement. The second includes Nath literature such as the songs of Mayamati, Mayanmati, and Gopi Chandra. Stories concerning of worship of Dharma Thakur and fairy tales, folk tales, and ballads. The texts belonging to the first category are easier to date, okay, as several manuscripts have been found, including that they were composed between the 5th and mid 18th centuries. Those belonging to the second category circulated orally and cannot be precisely dated. They were particularly popular in eastern Bengal, where the influence of Brahmins was relatively weak. Pirs and temples. From the 16th century, people began to migrate in large numbers from the less fertile West Bengal to the forested and marshy areas of southern eastern Bengal. As they moved eastwards, they cleared forest and brought the land under cultivation. Gradually, local communities of fisher folk and shifting cultivators, often tribals, merged with the new communities of peasants. This coincided with the establishment of Mughal control over Bengal, with their capital in the heart of eastern India, eastern delta at Dhaka. Officials and functionaries received land and often set up mosques that served as centers for religious transformation in these areas. The early settlers sought some order and assurance in the unstable condition of new settlements. These were provided by community leaders who also functioned as teachers, adjudicators, and were sometimes ascribed with supernatural powers. People referred to them with affection and respect as peers. This term included saints or Sufis and other religious personalities, daring colonizers, and defiant soldiers, various Hindu and Buddhist deities, and even animistic spirits. The cult of peers became very popular, and their shrines can be found everywhere in Bengal. Bengal also witnessed a temple building spree from the late 15th century, which culminated in the 19th century. We have seen that temples and other religious structures were often built by individuals or groups who were becoming powerful. To both demonstrate their power and proclaim their piety. Many of the modest brick and terracotta temples in Bengal were built with the support of several low and social groups such as Kolu and the Kansari. The coming of the European trading companies created new economic opportunities. Many families belonged to these social groups availed of these as their social economic position improved. They proclaimed their status through the construction of temples. When local deities once worshipped in the thatched huts in the villages gained the recognition of the Brahmins, their images began to be housed in temples. Okay. The temples began to copy the double-roofed dhachala or four-roofed chauchala structure of the thatched huts. This led to the evolution of typical Bengali style temple architecture. Okay. It is comparatively more complex four-roofed structure. Four triangular roofs placed on the four walls move up to the converge on the curved line or a point. Temples were usually built on the square platform. The interior was relatively plain, but the outer walls of many temples were decorated with paintings, ornamental tiles, and tables terracotta tablets. In some temples, particularly in Vishnupur in Bakura district of West Bengal, such decorations reached a high degree of existence. Fish as food. Traditional food habits are generally based on locally available items of food. Bengal is a riverine plain which produces plenty of rice and fish. Okay, so that is why staple food of Bengal is fish and rice. Understandably, these two items figure prominently in the menu even poor Bengalis. Fishing has always been an important occupation, and Bengali literature contains several references to fish. What is more, terracotta plaques on the walls or temples of viharas depict scenes of fish being dressed and taken to the market in the baskets. Brahmins were not allowed to eat non-vegetarian food, but the popularity of fish in the local diet made the Brahminical authorities relax this prohibition for the Bengal Brahmins. The Brihadharma Purana, the 13th century Sanskrit text from Bengal, permitted the local Brahmins to eat certain varieties of fish. Okay, so I hope you all understood the chapter in detail, and for more information or details, please contact the Bodhi Academy.